you made it and you look gorgeous, and
Well,
we're just
thank
happy to
you.
have you.
My ADHD makes me very time blind. So, as a result of that, I am always very early to everything and always ready very early. So, it helps.
Oh my God, is that why you look like camera ready, like 5 hours before you
Like
thought we
everything.
were
Yeah.
even starting?
Yeah.
I also have ADHD, so I totally understand.
Well, it is.
Yesterday I went into an audition and I was like, I'm so sorry, I forgot my headshot resume and the sides. And they were like, it's okay, here are the sides. But I had brought my phone in anyway, just in case like I, needed to like look at the lines. And I
Right.
put down my phone, did the audition, left, and my phone was in the audition room for the next half hour.
I've been there.
Listen, we're kooky, we're special,
Yeah,
we see the world in a
exactly.
different
It's
way.
really fun being our friend, because you never know what's going to
Shake
happen.
things up.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. This is what I hear, is that it's a good time being our
I think
friend.
I'm pretty fun. So,
Well, I like to think that we're friends on the internet,
yeah.
and we've literally never met, and you are really fun. Where
Oh,
do you
thank
live?
you. In Dallas area.
In Dallas. Okay.
Yeah.
I
So,
knew you lived in Texas, but I
Texas.
wasn't sure where. So about a year ago, I saw on my friend Francis's stories a video of Haley Grammer um, talking about a late term abortion. I mean,
Mhm.
I hesitate to even call it that because it was such a heartbreaking, beautiful story. I cried the minute I watched it. It was so beautifully done, so vulnerably done. And I just have followed along on your journey, Haley, ever since. And you are so fun and so colorful,
Thank
um,
you.
and wise and deep
Oh, wow. Thank
and
you.
brave for sharing. Yeah, you are so brave in your sharing around your experience as an intersectional feminist, as someone who lives in Texas, as a woman who was raised very, very religious. Is that right?
Yeah. Conservative Christian, Southern Baptist. Quite the opposite of where I am now.
Really?
So, yeah.
Would you introduce yourself to the audience and let us know where you're calling in from and all of that, just to orient ourselves in the conversation?
Yes, for sure. So I'm Haley Grammer. I live in Dallas area of Texas, um, the deep South. I mean, I think it's the deep South. People might argue, but that's here or there. And I am a mom. I am a history professor. I have extreme
Ah,
ADHD, and I also consider myself an abortion advocate. So,
I didn't know that you were a history professor, but that's so cool and
yes.
makes a lot of sense because you are so active in trying to change history from repeating itself right
Yes,
now with your
because
abortion activism.
it just keeps
Tell
on
me.
going around and around. So yeah, I mean that's one of like my
Yeah.
big things is like when you know the past, I feel like when you know the past, it's your responsibility to help it or keep the bad things from happening again. And so like one of my things
Yeah.
is, the things that our country right now and as we look around, we're repeating a lot of things that we have in the past, just like with the different mask on them, like we're using different words or we're calling them different things, but I mean, it's the same type of prejudice and things that we've seen in the past and in other countries too. So I really feel like
Mm.
a lot of my responsibility, because I know the past and a lot of people don't, is to try to help people understand that if we don't move towards a different direction than we're going, we will repeat the past and it will be terrible. I
Well,
know.
what specifically do you teach? What is it? American history?
Yeah, I teach. I'm like an adjunct, so I do it just part time. And so I mainly teach like intro to history courses. So, like your very beginnings, American history, like, from the very beginnings to the Civil War, and then the next one from the Civil War to present.
So,
And I
and when you
like
talk
to,
about the
oh,
prejudice,
sorry.
no,
I was
tell
going
me
to say,
more.
and I like to, when I teach, I like to do it from the perspective of like women and minorities, because a lot of times, like
Oh,
our history that we learn, especially like the basic US history that you learn, is always like great man history, especially great white man history. And bleh, okay,
mm,
so I try to teach it from like the perspective of women and minorities and different groups that haven't had like a large voice in the past, like through the historiography of American history and try to
right. I
expose
mean,
my students to that.
there's a reason why we call it his story,
Yeah, yeah,
his
thank you.
story,
Exactly.
because that's exactly what it is. It's his story from his
Hmm.
perspective. Um, can you tell me about your religious upbringing and how it informs your work as an abortion rights advocate?
Yes. So I was raised Southern Baptist. I like as Southern Baptist as you could be. Pretty much my dad was like chairman of the deacons and my mom like was as high as you could get a woman in a church because they don't give them like actual
Mm,
real titles really. And we were in the
wow.
church literally every time the doors were open. Like we had keys to the church. We were the ones that were opening the doors. And so I spent my pretty much entire youth um, having almost two lives, a life that I had at school and then a life that I had at church. And I have always been like, very curious, like I was always a big reader, and so I like was educated at school, but I also like educated myself a lot just through like a lot of reading and stuff. And I figured out very early on that a lot of the things that I believed didn't really line up with like what the church was saying. And then the things that I did agree with the church that, they were saying like, let's love everybody and things and let's accept people, all that kind of things that's like in the Bible that they like to kind of fluff up. Um, then that was like the things that people weren't doing. And I was like, well, this is really confusing. So,
Yeah.
uh, and I, stayed like I met my current husband in the church and we stayed in the church for a long time. Actually, until we had our daughter, like we would continually go to
Wow.
church. So my daughter's 5. So like we were in the church, my husband was like a music minister and like we met even like when we were teaching youth group, and so we stayed in a long time. But
Mm,
even when I was in like these years, I was always like the wild card. Like when we would have like our community group with like other women and stuff, like um people would like laugh at Scotty and I, like not like rude. I mean, it depends on how you look at it, but like jokingly, they're like, oh, they're the liberals of the group, like, oh, they voted for Obama. Oh man, like
God.
that they're voting for Hillary. They got a Hillary sign in their yard. That type of thing. Like they would like laugh about it or whatever. But we were always like the wild card. And my husband and I were like the ones always like challenging the ideas like that women, should be second and submissive and things like that. And it's funny because looking back, like a lot of the way that was received, like in talking about it with my husband Scotty, it's pretty much everybody just thought that like my husband was just like following everything I did. Like they were like, Haley's just such a loudmouth and she just has so much to say that Scotty's like, whatever, I'll just do what she says and I'll follow her. And so it's really funny, like looking back, it's like they just, a lot of the people in the church, like they can't grasp the idea mentally that like a man who could have an automatic
Mm,
position of power wouldn't automatically take that position of power. They were like, that is just absolutely
mm.
crazy. She must be a witch or something. Like she has him under a spell, something like that. So, but like through our entire church career, we were just kind of like the oddballs. And when I had my daughter, is when I was like, I can't go back. And I was like, I remember like, just holding her as a baby and like thinking about my own upbringing. And I was like, I
Right.
cannot walk into a building, into a church, into a congregation where automatically my daughter is considered less than just because she was born with a vagina. Like, I just can't do that. I
Right.
just can't expose her to that same, upbringing that I had that I feel is harmful. And so,
Mm,
like, I was like, we're never going back. or I was like, I'm never going
Mm.
back. My husband, he's like still playing in the worship band and stuff. So like he would like go and do his duties. But like I was like, me and Caroline, like we ain't going back. And I
Right.
kind of looked around for like other more liberal churches and stuff, but like over like the past 5 years, like we completely just shifted our views and like deconstructed them. And now we're both atheist and not believers at all.
Mm. Wow.
And, gonna raise our daughter completely out of the church, obviously.
Wow. I
So,
think you have such a unique position and voice in Texas specifically, but also I think having come from such a conservative environment, you probably, I'm sure there are things about, the people that you were raised with and even the beliefs that still might resonate, or that you can sort of see where people are coming from. You
mhm.
can speak to that experience while you do your advocacy. But I'm wondering if we can really hone in on that first, I, I don't even know what to call it. Was it a birth story? Was it an abortion story? Was that first
Yeah.
pregnancy? Was this the first time that you were pregnant?
Yes, it
Yeah.
was the first time I was pregnant.
And how that and how that affected your whole life, right?
hmm So, like I said, we were in church, and if you talk today about like you talk to like a Southern Baptist, they're like, "Oh, I'm pro-life." That's like the mainstay. And I never was what people consider pro-life. Like even growing up in that, like I said, I was kind of like a wild card, and that just really never resonated with me. And so I've always been pro-choice, always. And it was another thing that I would, catch a lot of flack for in the church. And then we got pregnant. So Scotty and I actually like really never intended on having kids. And we
Oh,
said that we said that our entire life, like marriage, we were like, we're not going to get married. And everybody's like, you're going to change your mind. That type of stuff. I mean, not get married. I mean, we're not going to have kids. And people were always like, you're going to change your mind. And I had like had an IUD for like 6 years, and it was like my appointment to go and get it changed. And I was like doing the math like on the way there, and I was like thinking, okay, so I was 29 at that moment. I was like, so if I get another IUD, it'll last for another 6 years. So then I'll be like in my mid 30s by the time I get this one out. And so, I'm like, then, pregnancy might be like a lot harder, that type of thing. So I literally like texted Scotty on the way, and I was like, I know we said we're never having kids. I was like, but I'm about to get another IUD in. And if I get this next IUD in, I was like, then we definitely aren't having kids. So I need you to decide right now if maybe I should just not get it and maybe we just see what happens. And he was like, okay, just see what happens. I'm a little impulsive. And so I went to the doctor and I was like, okay, take it out. And they were like, do you want another one? I was like, nah, let's just see what happens. And I never forget my doctor was like, I'll see you in 3 months. You'll be pregnant. And I was like, oh, calm it down, Dr. Angel, to calm it down. And so, which, yes, by the way, that's her name, Dr. Angel, and she is an angel.
Dr.
Um,
Angel
yes.
from
And
Dallas.
I know everybody, if you need a doctor, Dr. Angel from Dallas. So and she was right. I did get pregnant and I was like, oh my gosh. And so we went through like, the beginnings of pregnancy and everything and announced to everyone we were pregnant. Like after like 13 weeks, like we waited, because they're like, you should wait a little bit longer in case something happens. We're like, okay. So we waited. And then we went for our 20-week anatomy scan. And I could tell
Yeah.
something was like up, like they always say like, like the sonogram technician, like when something's wrong, it's like, or when something's right, everything's good. It's like very happy. But then like when something's wrong, it's like you could just feel something off. And like as she
Yeah.
left the room and she was like, here's your picture. Or I was like, can I get some pictures? I don't know. It's like my first big sonogram. Hello. And she was like, oh yeah, here's a picture of her feet. And I was like, this is very odd. Okay. Because normal people, when they get sonogram pictures from their baby, they don't just get a foot picture. And I told Scotty, I was like,
Yeah.
something is up. Okay. My alarm bells are going off. This is very sus. Okay. Very suspicious.
Yeah.
And so then the doctor comes back and they were like, okay, there is something, we're not sure, but there's like some sort of growth or something that looks like it's on the base of her spine. It might be spina bifida, something else. We want you to go get more tests. We want you to go to this other doctor, get a better ultrasound. and that type of stuff. And I was like, are you freaking kidding me? And this time we are still believers. And so I'm like angry at God, at this moment too, because I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, we didn't want
Hmm.
kids. And then all of a sudden we are like, gonna, put this in your hands, God, and we're gonna have kids. And then this happens. Are you kidding me? So, but it was terrible because also as pregnant, you're emotional and all of that stuff. And so we go the next day, we
And
go
it's your
to this.
baby. Oh, come
Yes,
on.
yes.
It's
And
your
I mean, at this
baby.
time, like, I'm 20 weeks. Like, I am, thoroughly attached to
You
this
are
baby that's been
pregnant.
making me sick, okay, the whole
Yeah.
time. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so we go to the next doctor, and we essentially figure out that it is like, it's not spina bifida, it is a tumor. And it's like this rare tumor that happens. It's like called a sacrococcygeal teratoma, and it can like happen. It's not genetic. It's completely random. And I have always felt like my life, like anything that can happen is going to happen to me. Like, I don't know. It's just like my curse of the universe for some reason. But I was like, of course this is going to happen. And they were like, it could stay small, it could grow really big. And at this time, it was like about the size of a walnut. So, like pretty small on a 20-week baby, which they're pretty small too. And so they were
Yeah.
like, so we just want to watch it. Okay. So they were like, we want you to come into this get an ultrasound every week. So you go in the next week and it's like double the size. And we're like, this is, not looking good. And, our doctors are trying to be like as amazing and kind as necessary. And then we go in the next week and it's like double that size. So it is like growing very fast. And now it's, we're like 2.5 weeks into this, and it's like starting to already move things around because it's like the tumor's on the outside and it's on the inside of her. And it's like pushing things, and it's a very vascular. So it is like taking a lot of like the blood that she's like, it's just a lot of blood, and it's really hard on her heart. And then like the tumor keeps growing and it's like squishing all of her, insides. And so we're like, and they give us the option at this point, like you can terminate at this point. But at this point, I'm like, there's still also being like, we could have surgery. Like there's surgeries where they go in utero and take it out. They're like afterwards, they can have surgery. And so they still are like giving us hope. So like we didn't want to just like, abandon hope at that moment yet. And so
Yeah.
as it goes on, and then they send us to, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And it's starting to like cause some issues in me too. Because I've never been pregnant at this point. And like your first pregnancy, like you don't grow as fast as like your other ones, like it seems like
That's
it
right.
takes a while for it to like pop out. Well, in because the whole thing took 5 weeks, essentially 20 to 25 weeks. And in those
Oh,
5 weeks, I went from like barely showing it all to the size of a 36-week pregnant person in 5 weeks.
wow.
So like
Wow.
that's just like how bad or how big like the tumor got, how quickly. And so we
Oh
went to
no.
specialists and at Children's in Houston, and pretty much they told us there, and this is like the fourth week, and they were like, there's pretty much nothing we can do. They were like, there is a possibility that you could make it, but at the rate that it's growing, like we just can't do anything. So we went back and we waited till our next appointment, and our doctor was like, so we've got to really make some decisions because the laws here in Texas, they are pretty strict because we were already past the point of like having an elective abortion because we were already like at 24 and a half weeks at this point. And so, and we were approaching the point where even like with the medical reasoning of like the baby's not going to survive and like the mother's having issues, that we would still possibly have to go out of state. So they were like, if you wait one more week to, decide, you're going to have to go out of state because the state of
Wow.
Texas essentially like will not let you deliver this baby because or at that point because the baby's not going to survive. So even though like we did a C-section, we planned a C-section and everything because the tumor was so large and everything. And even though like we were planning the C-section and everything, if we had waited longer, the I knowing that the baby wasn't going to survive, the state of Texas would have been like, you can't do that. So, because there was going to be no life-saving measures done on the baby after we delivered. So it was kind of like
What
we were
year
at
was
that
this?
point. this was in 2016. 2016, yes. So and this is before like the Texas heartbeat bill that passed last year and everything, which would have made
Which
this
is what?
even more, the Texas heartbeat bill. So, which would have made this even more like difficult had that been,
What is
going
that?
on. So that was this
Tell us what that
past
is. Yeah.
year. The past year, the state of Texas, some lovely white men who have never had children in their life, put forward this bill and said that essentially any baby that, or fetus that has a heartbeat, okay, you cannot abort it. But what they are considering a heartbeat is just heart activity, which happens at like 6 weeks, before people even know that they're pregnant.
Before
So,
they have a heart.
and
That's called electricity.
yes, exactly. And in the state of Texas, of course, they said, oh, well, we'll allow for mother emergencies and things like that. But then they don't define it. It's very vague and it is just a big problem. But now that law is gone because the repeal of Roe v. Wade, and Texas had a trigger law. And so now we just have no abortions here in Texas. So,
It's hard to call what you went through an abortion for me. And maybe because I have like so much programming of my own around the word
mhm,
abortion, but like you didn't aborting,
yeah.
meaning it just
It's
sounds
hard to
like
compute.
you
Yes,
had a
because
choice in this.
yes.
This was a medical intervention.
Hmm.
So, and I'm more than happy to support abortion, just for my own, because I believe that that's absolutely necessary for the world to function properly. But this particular late term abortion at 24
Hmm.
weeks, when the child is suffering,
Yeah.
the mother is suffering, this is a medical intervention, is it? I don't know.
I know it's
That's
very
what
it's
I'm hearing.
it's this is what I've like noticed, or like what I've observed, because I'm the type of person who I analyze everything all the time. My brain just never stops. But it's been interesting as like an academic to kind of look at this from the outside, and to look at like how people interpret the word abortion and how people like react to it and that type of thing. Because when we like, especially because politics has like really just made this forefront issue and really, made it about something that it's not even about. Because the term abortion is just, it's a medical term. Like, it is the termination of a pregnancy. And so, and it applies to so much more than just what people imagine in their heads, like, oh, a 18-year-old away at college got pregnant and wants to go have an abortion, so that type of thing. Like, that's kind of what people imagine. And even the word late
Yeah.
term abortion like isn't even really like a medical thing. It's just something that politicians have like created to like scare people, thinking that we're going in and like pulling out live whole babies and chopping their heads off and that type of thing. Like, that's what they've done with that term. And so why I do like to use the word late term abortion is because I feel like we need to re-educate people on what it actually is,
Mm.
what an abortion actually
Yeah.
is, and help people understand that when you look at those statistics and it says like, this many late
Right.
term abortions by those politicians who are trying to get rid of it, what you don't see in that statistic is that it's actually people like me, people who wanted their baby had a medical problem, the baby was killing the mother, and in order to save my own life, like, I had to do that, and I don't regret it at all.
Oh my God,
um
no.
yeah, but it is an abortion because we did terminate a pregnancy. Like,
Thank
the
you.
baby, she would have lived on a
Thank you.
little bit longer in me, but we pulled her out, and I'm glad we did, and I got like 30 minutes with her
You
alive. But
did?
it was still, yeah, but it was still an abortion because we terminated that pregnancy knowing that the baby would not survive. And so I think it's really like one of my big things is that we need to help people understand that all abortions aren't what the media has put into our brains. And it's okay to use the word abortion because it literally is just a medical term. I mean, it's so frustrating because I think of like all the medical things that like men go through or men do or whatever. And like none of it is questioned. Absolutely none of it's questioned. Like if my husband goes, like when he went and got even a vasectomy, okay, not a single question like about anything with it, and it's not politicized. It's not, they didn't like have to ask like me or any, there wasn't any permission slip signed or anything. I mean, it's just so frustrating to me because abortion literally just is a medical procedure that actually women need to survive a lot of times. And people have just turned it and taken it and, made it this terrible thing all so they can control
Thank
women.
you.
Like that is what it is. It's
Yeah.
they're just trying to control women. And
Thank you so
nothing
much.
makes me more mad
No,
than
I
trying
really
to be
appreciate.
controlled.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Because you have because you have a experience and an understanding of where this control comes from and how painful and hurtful it can be. By the way, Scotty, love him for his vasectomy. What a
Immediately,
guy!
yes. As soon as we had
Proud of him.
Caroline,
Proud
like
of him.
6 months after, I was like, because even the doctor said, like, I had a difficult pregnancy with Caroline too. Like, I was in the hospital for the last month of her pregnancy, and we delivered her at 37 weeks because of blood pressure issues and things. And my doctors were like,
Yeah.
if you get pregnant again, you will probably spend 6 months in the hospital. And I was like, oh, buddy, like, I cannot do that. All right. I think I gained
Right.
literally 2 pounds a day when I was in the hospital. Like, I cannot be
Right.
out there doing that. So we
No.
were like,
And
time
it's
to
a
get the snip,
two-person
snip.
process. Yeah, that's right. Time to
Yes.
get a snip snip because it's a two-person process.
Yes.
It's a two-person
100%.
process. I really appreciate you educating me and also the listener on owning the language around abortion. Because I
Yeah.
also was taught that, well, it's a choice. That all abortions are a choice. And I also was taught about the 18-year-old being frivolous and just, wanting an abortion so she could have fun. That is
Yeah.
violence against women. That narrative is violence against women.
And you
And
see
I don't
that.
know that I don't know that all conservative people know that
No.
narrative in and of itself is putting us in a situation where at 20 weeks you are in physical pain and so is your baby because you're like,
Yeah.
I'm not that girl. Well, who is that girl, first of all? Who is this girl we've demonized? Who is she having sex with?
It takes two
So
people also.
It takes two people.
You know,
It takes two
that's
people.
something that I see like so much because I'm very open about our story because I want to educate people, but that means in return I get a lot of crazy comments, a lot of people, and then I also am very like I try to educate people on the usage of like the word pro-choice because this is what I get a lot in comments. They're like, I am pro-life for myself, but I'm pro-choice for other people. And I'm like, you're pro-choice. Like that means you're pro-choice because just because you're saying I wouldn't, because the idea is like, I would never have an abortion, but I'll think it's okay for other people to decide. But number one, that means that you're pro-choice. So stop qualifying it and saying I'm pro-life for myself, but just say you're pro-choice. Like pro-choice is not a dirty word. Like people make it out to be like they want to be like, well, I would never get an abortion. Number one, nothing wrong with it. It's a medical procedure. And number two, you don't know. I never thought I was going to get an abortion. Okay.
You didn't want
I
an
did it.
abortion.
I mean, nobody grows up and they're like, I can't wait to get my first abortion. Like, it's not something that people like subscribe to get. And then another thing that I see in my comments a lot is like, well, because when they look at my story and they're like, oh, okay, I get why it's really important for women to have access to medical care, whatever. But they're like, I'm okay with this, but I just don't want people out there just using it as birth control and getting pregnant and having
Right.
abortion after abortion, abortion. And I'm
Right.
like, oh my gosh, like, number one, that's not happening. Okay. Like I know that in Orange is the New Black, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, said that she was having 1 million abortions over and over and over again. And like, apparently now that is just like set in people's minds, like that really happens. But number one, like abortions are not cheap at all. They're not covered by the government, by the state, nobody's paying. You have to
Really?
pay for it. They're not cheap.
How
Yeah.
much does it
Well,
how
at
much does it
least in
cost?
Texas. Well, it depends. In like for mine, obviously was different because it was like a lot of money, which by the way, insurance, paid for some of it, but not all of it. But I
Wow.
mean, like on average, I think like the average abortion in Texas before was like around $500. So it's not like people are out there just having abortions willy nilly, just spending $500, no problem. Like that's just this myth that people have that there's
It's a
just
myth.
these like wild women out there just having sex with everybody, getting pregnant, and just being like, you know what? Oh man, I'm pregnant again. I'm going to get an abortion. No, most of the women
It,
who are
it
actually
reminds
getting
me.
abortions are mothers, you know, who
They're
who
mothers.
have a family.
Right. Yeah. It's so funny. I think of the Lilith story. Like from the very beginning of the Old Testament, uh, just talks about how Lilith was the first woman before Eve,
Eve, yeah.
and she wanted to have sex with Adam on top, and she was banished from the Garden of Eden, and she still haunts children.
I mean,
This is what we're taught very at a very 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 early age, um,
the audacity
and
of Lilith
what's
to
really
want to be
interesting
on
is
top.
the audacity of her to want to experience pleasure or have
Yes, exactly.
power or to right exactly to have choice to have
Yeah.
choice. um yeah, that's literally in the creation story, guys. So I want to go back to 24 weeks if we can.
Oh, yes. So, yeah. So at 24 weeks, they pretty much say like we've got to do this. Like we're going to have to schedule this, C-section, and get her out because she's starting. I was having what they call mirror syndrome. So she was developing hydrops, which is like some heart issues, and then I was mirroring those syndromes, and so like it was affecting me. And if it got too far, then I could die. And so now the about this being it was it's labeled an abortion and everything, so that means in the state of Texas, because we were past like the normal abortion time period, we had to get all these special permissions. And so the doctor's appointment where we decided, okay, it's time, all right, was on a Friday. And that Monday, I was 25 weeks exactly. And so that's when we scheduled the C-section for. And so over the weekend, I had to do like a couple of things. So we had to go up to the hospital the next day. We had to meet with our doctor and we had to fill out paperwork, which was then essentially saying, like, this, you understand you're getting an abortion, you understand that this is happening, sign here. And it had to go like be approved by like the hospital lawyers and I think a judge and all of this. And then because it's abortion, my doctor, she had to hand me this like pamphlet, which is what they would give you if you got an abortion. And it's the pamphlet put out by like the state of Texas. And it's like things you should know. And it's like, you're getting an abortion. Here are all these things you should know. And it's like, you have a major chance of being depressed for the rest of your life if you get an abortion. Like you might have infertility in
Oh.
the future if you get an abortion. Like it's
Oh.
very biased. It's very like not written by doctors. Okay. Like we are talking, it's written by the conservative groups who are running these same pregnancy crisis centers that aren't really doing anything but trying to get people not to have an abortion. So that's what this pamphlet is. Okay. And my doctor handed it to me. And she was like, I have to hand you this by law. She says, you don't even have to look at it. She said, you can walk it to that trash can right there and throw it away. And I was like, no, ma'am, Pam. I said, I am keeping this pamphlet. And I said, and it is going to fuel me every time I think about the politicians here in Texas trying to control women's lives and making women like me, who are going through the hardest weekend of their life, go through this. Like it's literally just extra steps and extra things that we had to do in order to just, you know, birth this baby essentially that is not going to live so that I can live. It's like, here, we're going to give you all these extra steps, all this extra hardship. Have fun this weekend. And so then we went through the weekend, and then we went Monday morning, and then we've had a baby. And
Oh,
it was
baby.
it went on kind of like a normal C-section, except there was a lot more people in the operating room. They allowed us extra because of our situation. So it was quite crowded in there. And like the NICU was there too, just in case there was like a miracle. They pulled her out and then maybe like, I don't know, the tumor was gone or something. You never know, but they were there just in case. So it was very crowded. But we got like, she lived for like 30 minutes. And then we also like got to keep her for like several days actually. Like they were like really, really like Presbyterian Hospital in Dallas, amazing. Okay. Like they just were very like empathetic and caring and it meant a lot. And so then I had to essentially recover from a C-section, and then go home without a baby, which was hard, especially, because I now had like the body of a person who had just had a baby with no baby, which meant that like after we got home, like then my milk came in and it's like, great, I've got all of this. And then I've got a C-section scar and I've got all of these things, but then like also no baby. So it was a rough year. You know, and then, like I said, we were part of the church at the time, and that was frustrating at points. Like, churches are also very good at like being very supportive and like bringing food and stuff. So like, we had a lot of food, which I mean, I am a snacker. I do love me some chips and the people I knew from the church, they knew what I liked. So like, there's a lot of hot Cheetos here, which I did appreciate. But the people outside of like that core group who like really knew me, you would get like a lot of like condolences and things like that. And it was always, God has a plan. This is all part of God's plan. This is all for the glory of his kingdom. And I'm just like sitting there like with cabbage leaves in my bra so that my milk will go away. Like pregnant.
Did it hurt?
Oh, yeah, terrible.
Did you get like mastitis? Yeah.
No, it wasn't that bad. But I did
that's
get
good.
like
That's good.
I did get really nice saloon girl boobs, like when I'd wrap them up because they were
Yes.
huge and they were like right up here, and I was like, man, if I could do porn just right now with these boobs, I could kill it. Okay, just call me like a sailor's wench. But yeah, but like I'm trying to heal all of that, and all I hear is people being like, it's all part of God's plan, it's all part of God's plan. And I was like, this God really sucks. Okay, like he really sucks if this is part of his plan where I didn't want to be pregnant, and then he's like, you know what, maybe maybe you should get pregnant. And I was like, okay, and then we do, and then he's like, just kidding, taking the baby away. And I was like, wow, you're terrible. If this is true, if this is the God that I am, have been following all these years, like I don't think you're that great anymore,
Yeah.
So it was kind of like,
what was the alternative though? Medically, what would be the alternative at 24 weeks? I mean, you met her. She wasn't thriving. You saw.
Yeah.
So what?
Yeah, there was nothing. The alternative was like me dying, essentially. Like that was it. Like she could. Here's the thing too. It's because every case is so different that even when we were going through this, so we're going to these specialists, we're looking at the sonogram, the tumor's the size of like a volleyball, essentially, like on the inside and outside, like it's got the mass of the size of a volleyball on a 25-week baby's body. So when she was born, she was over 5 pounds as a 25 weeker. So, because when people have like early deliveries now, like, and if their babies are delivered 24 weeks, those babies are tiny little 1-pounder. She was 5 pounds. And so even when we would like meet with different specialists and stuff, they'd be like, well, why are like y'all gonna have a C-section? So like that weekend before, when we had to like go up to the hospital, we also met with the NICU team, and the NICU team was like, why? Some of the doctors were like, why are you having a C-section? Why don't you just let her pass and then just have her vaginally? Because they want to try to reduce the amount of surgery you have on your uterus and stuff, for future babies and whatnot. And so, and especially the way they were having to cut my uterus, it was like the opposite way they normally do. I don't remember if they normally go up and down or side to side, but because of like the size, they were having to do it the opposite way. And so like there was just
Wow.
like a lot of, even amongst the doctors, like people couldn't agree. Like some of the doctors were like, just pass and then just, have a stillborn. Or they were like, no, we should do this because it's too big. And so there was just like a lot of unknown. And we had to kind of just make the decision that we thought was best for us. And like I have never been one who was excited about having vaginal birth anyways, okay? Like if none of
Hmm.
this would have happened and they were like, "Would you like a vaginal birth or C-section?" I would be like, "Give me a C-section any day." And I
Hmm.
had a C-section
Yeah.
with our second daughter, and I would say it again, you have a baby in 30 minutes, okay? And you get to wear your makeup and everything. Like it is fantastic. A scheduled C-section. So, I was already like, number one, I didn't want to have a vaginal birth anyways, and I certainly don't want to have one with my baby who has got all these issues and then got this giant tumor. So
Right, right, right.
I
That's
don't
right.
even, I don't, I just had to do what we
Yeah.
had to do for us.
Yeah. I really appreciate you walking through that all with us. I can't imagine that it's easy to share. I think
Yeah,
uh,
it's gotten
it's
easier
really
over the
important.
years.
Has it? That's great.
Yes.
I'm sure your daughter also provides a lot of joy and fulfillment
Oh,
and
is
like an
she?
understanding of what a
Yes.
healthy child is and what a
Yeah.
healthy mother is. Um, but the fact that you do share in such detail, I think it is helpful. I really do. I'm more than happy to advocate for the 18-year-old who gets knocked up. I don't know
Hmm.
what happened and needs an abortion and all of this. I think every story is different. And I know that there are many, many, many women like you who are living with
Countless.
unnecessary shame and
Yes. I
fear
mean,
that God forbid it would happen
since
again.
Yes, since I have like come out and started speaking about it, the amount of women that have reached out to me being like, "This, I don't talk about it, I don't tell anybody about it, but this happened to me. Like we did this. And the shame that surrounds them being like, I didn't want to, we didn't tell anybody because we didn't want people to think, oh, they're just having an abortion. Like so many women go through it and are quiet about it because of the shame that society has. And the result of that is that we are not talking about it, and these women don't know that they're not alone. That actually
Yeah.
there is a huge amount of women who are going through this in different stages in different ways. And it's like if we could just be open about it. And I mean, I understand not everybody wants to, and that's okay. Like I get it. I just cannot shut up, and that is the burden I have to bear.
Do.
So I just talk
Do.
about it,
Yep.
everything. And I understand not everybody's like that, but I think that I really feel like it is my, duty and purpose because I'm the type of person that can't shut up and because I will talk about it to be the type of person to be the spokesperson for those women who can't. And so
Yeah.
I just feel like we need to continue to talk about it so that people realize actually how normal it is and
Hmm.
that we are completely politicizing something that is a medical decision and actually nobody else's business besides like a woman and her doctor.
Yeah. I'm sorry you had to learn all that on your own body.
Thank you.
You know,
But,
I'm real
you
in
know,
your family on your time. I'm really it's it's heartbreaking and thank God you can't shut up. Well, not to bring God into it.
yeah, it,
I happen to be a Gotti, but like
it's okay.
thank whoever. Thank you
Hmm.
for not shutting up. How about that? Thank you for not shutting up.
Thank you.
Um
I will continue to speak loudly.
Good, thank you. I'm wondering. So you live in a what we would call a red state, right?
Hmm.
Abortions are no longer legal. What would
Right.
happen in your situation now? If
Okay, so the way the law is here in Texas is they wrote a trigger law that has been on the books that essentially was like, if the Supreme Court gets rid of Roe v. Wade, we will automatically like ban abortions after 30 days. That 30 days is gone, so abortions are banned. But they say, except in cases of life, to save the life of the mother. Okay, but here's the problem with that is that that's pretty much like all it says. It's like very vague. And what is happening now is doctors and mostly like hospitals and hospital lawyers are very afraid of getting sued because essentially like the way the Texas law is that if a doctor performs an abortion now, like they can be fined like $100,000, go to like all of this stuff. And all it takes is like, let's say that my case happened, but somebody at my church knew about it and they were like, wow, I can't believe that that doctor allowed an abortion. And then they like, call the police and then they investigate it or whatever. And then they could take them to court and, charge them with illegal abortion, the doctor. And then the doctor would then have to prove, okay, well, this was necessary to save the woman's life. What that does is that creates a big court case and things for the doctor and the hospital. And so now what we have happening is we have hospital lawyers who are the ones making the decisions for these women instead of doctors. Doctors aren't even, number one, if they're on their own, like without, under the supervision of a hospital or whatnot, they're putting themselves like at risk of getting in trouble. So, a lot of them are obviously like not offering any type of care like that, or they're having to
Oh my
wait till the
God.
last minute. Like there's a news article actually recently about here in Texas, a woman who miscarried and she had to keep her dead fetus inside of her, I think for like 5 to 7 days before the hospital would complete the D&C. And the baby's already gone, but the hospital lawyers and things are just like, we don't want that. Everybody's got to be safe. Like, that's the lawyer's job, is to make sure that everything's within the law. But the problem is we have lawyers making medical decisions and they shouldn't be, because again, this is just a medical procedure that happens daily to save women's lives. And so if
Daily.
it was
Yeah.
my case, what would have happened is it depends also, I think, on what, doctor you have and what they're willing to put themselves at risk for, but I am privileged enough to where if this happened, I could hop on a plane and go to another state. But not everybody is in that position that I'm in. You have lots of women who
Also,
don't have that ability and support and things like that.
money, money,
Yes, exactly.
time, another person. What about your health, right? Like, let's say you waited until 26 weeks and you were not walking.
Yeah. Yes. And what if like I didn't have like a husband and a family who was supportive, and that, I didn't have the ability to, pay those bills that I needed to pay. Like there are
Right.
so many women who are in these positions that don't have these privileges. And so if they're put in this position, like, you know, I think women are going to die unless we do something about it.
What can we do?
Like, honestly. Well, um, you know, I I hate to say we've got to vote because like it sounds like an
Hmm.
oversimplification, but I mean really like we do, that's just one of the things, but we have to vote and look at the people we're voting in local elections and like state representative elections, that type of thing. Like here in Texas, the people who are making those abortion laws are running unopposed. Republicans running unopposed here in Texas just because like people are like, oh, it's a red state. Nobody's going to, a Democrat won't win. And they're just running unopposed and we're just handing them these seats. And then they're creating this terrible legislation that is harming people. So we need to vote. And then also, I think that like protesting and things, I think it's really important. A lot of people can get, kind of negative and be like, what are you accomplishing by having rallies and protests and things like that? And what I think we're accomplishing by that, because I get it. Okay. Like I know that the guy who wrote the Texas Heartbeat bill, okay, he's not going to look outside his window and be like, you know what, I'm changed my mind because these women are out here with signs. We know that. But what it does do is it shows other women who are feel like maybe they're alone, or feel like it's not a big deal. It begins to educate the public on how big of a deal it is. So it shows that like this is actually a big thing, and this many people, this large group of thousands of women that are marching through the streets of Dallas, like that shows that everybody, these people understand how big of a deal it is, and we need to spread that message. Like it's all about spreading the message. And so hopefully when election day comes along and, something gets in the way of, and it's going to be inconvenient to go vote and whatnot, hopefully people will remember, the signs that they saw at the protest and the thousands of people, marching through, and be like, okay, this is important. It is important to save these, lives of these women. So I need to make the time, even if it's inconvenient, and go vote and, show people that it does matter.
And voting
So
is private. So even if you have, let's say, a spouse or family members or whoever that are
you don't have
staunchly
to
opposed,
tell them how you voted.
You don't have to tell anybody. You do not have to tell anybody.
Yeah, you can straight lie to them and be like,
Yeah.
I definitely voted for whoever, and don't,
And don't.
I think that is,
whatever keeps you safe.
yes, that's a frustrating thing, especially here with Texas and being in the Christian church. Is I've heard a lot, because again, I've always been very politically active, which a lot of women in the church are not. And I've heard on multiple occasions, women say things to me like, "Oh, I don't even know who's running. I just vote for who my husband says to vote, or my husband just gives me a list and then I just vote." And I'm just like you don't, number one, you don't know what you're voting for, and you're actually voting against your own interests. Like if you're just voting for who he says because he's like, well, I'm fiscally conservative and I don't want to pay as many taxes or whatever, and so I'm going to elect these guys, but those guys are also like making harmful legislation against women, like you're voting against your own interests. And I think a lot of people, especially in the South, a lot of women don't understand that. And so
But
again,
I also
that's
know
why I
that we
just can't stop
can't.
talking about it.
I really appreciate you. keep talking. But also, I want to say that a lot of people stop listening when they feel like, they're not being respected, or
Yes.
that they're being talked down to. And I've heard a lot about, like, not, a lot of people in the deep South who are, vote red. They're like, stop talking to me like I'm an idiot. So I want to say, I'm sure there are reasons why people are Republican. I am sure. I know it for a fact. Family member, etc. I just, around this issue, I just think, well, how can we empower women to know that their voice matters, that their voice can literally save lives? And I don't need to diminish the way they live their life. I got no beef with the church. Personally, I got no beef with the church. I got no beef with Judaism, like I'm into it. But I will say, like, women are the reason why we're all here.
Yeah.
Like, every single person walking on this earth got here through a woman. We are very powerful creatures. And if there's a way to love women enough for them to know, babe, it's okay if he's voting that way. You get in there, you close the curtain, you say, I heard Haley, and like, that woman would have died. That woman would have also really loved to have a child, a healthy child in her arms, just like I get to have. Click, let's vote for women's rights. I don't think we have. Yeah.
I think it's like, to me, especially like after having my daughter, I mean, because, like voted for myself, I'm like, well, I'm a woman or whatever, and I want these rights too. But the idea, when I think about it, about my daughter growing up in a country where she now has less rights than I had, I'm like, guys, we are not doing this correctly. Like, in no matter what your viewpoint is, like, and you look at history, we are going backwards. And it's like, sometimes I wake up and I'm like, is this real? Because you think back like even 10 years ago, like, if people had been like, oh, women are gonna have less rights in 10 years than we have now, I'd be like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
When I saw you, when I saw your video a year ago, I was like, wow, this is a really moving story. Why is she telling it right now? Literally, I'm a smart lady. Finger on the pulse.
Yeah.
I'm a mother. I'm a story to all the points. Of course, the video got to me because because I'm the demographic, right? I literally thought to myself, gee, I wonder why she has to say, wow, what?
Yeah.
I
Well,
can't be the only
especially,
one in the dark. I
well,
can't be
it's
that naive that I thought, okay, we did it already. We're having abortions.
especially
Problem.
because like you're not living like, in this, like, and I know that sounds like crazy because we're all living in America and we're all seeing the same things, but there is
Not
something
really.
different about about living in like a red state in the South, that is, controlled. Because honestly, like Texas isn't red. It really is purple, but it's gerrymandered so much to where it appears red. And the result of that is that we
Oh.
have these like controlling laws that are, happening. And honestly, like the general conversation that you hear around politics, if you're just listening to random people talk, um, is like, especially like random white people here in the South. I mean, they just like, it would have been much more obvious to you why that I was talking about that if you had been living in this place. Does that make sense?
Well,
Like
yeah,
it's kind
you
of like we've
explained
gone back in time here in the South.
but even in 2016, when this, abortion
Hmm.
happened, you paid an astronomical amount of money.
Hmm.
You had to sign waivers trying to convince you otherwise.
Hmm.
You waited 5 torturous weeks
Yep.
while a tumor was growing inside of you, being mirrored back into your body.
Hmm.
Um, there was a lot of red tape that already existed in 2016. Now,
Yeah.
I am lucky enough. Um, I didn't go through this, so I don't know enough about it.
Yeah.
I don't know what would happen in New York, and I don't know what would happen in 2016. I don't know how much it would cost or how long it would take. I don't know.
Yeah.
But now that 2022 has happened and Roe has been overturned, I've got to know more.
Hmm.
It's my responsibility to know more now.
Yeah.
I didn't then. I didn't a year ago. But there are women that are going to die
Hmm.
in the name of motherhood, which
Yes.
is perverse.
And forced motherhood. Like, oh, some people, like I chose to get pregnant, but so many people don't choose to get pregnant and then also don't have that ability to get rid of the pregnancy that was forced upon them, children, teenagers.
Okay, so in the red states, you do have a community where you're protesting,
Hmm.
you're getting the word out for people in the community. I thought that was really interesting to hear that it's actually a purple state, that in fact most Americans believe that the truth that abortion is healthcare, as your story clearly illustrates. But as I said, in New York, and also in the Jewish faith, this is not
Hmm.
an issue.
Right.
Um,
I
this is a
envy y'all.
non-issue. In fact,
Yes.
well, we don't live in a we don't live in a Jewish country. We live in a Christian country where we are not experiencing the healthy separation between church and state that we have been promised. But what do we do in New York? What do we do in the rest of the quote unquote blue states where we did elect the officials? And what do we do?
I think, I mean, this is going to sound maybe cliche, but I mean, it's the money, like there are lots of underground abortion things happening here, abortion funds and whatnot, that are happening, like, so donating to abortion funds, that can help women who do get pregnant here in these red states get out and get the care that they need. So there's lots of like abortion funds and programs that you can give money to, and that money will go, essentially to help buy plane tickets and hotels and healthcare for these women who need abortions and need this healthcare but can't get it here.
I
And
have
then,
a I have a bed. I have a bed. I have food. You're
yes,
more than welcome. Brooklyn, New
I mean,
York, babies.
that's what
Babies.
people, that's what, they need here, or we need, is essentially like that support and that, the ability to get the women the healthcare that they need, and then the support around them, once they're getting it. And which I love that, because I think like essentially like ever since, Roe v. Wade is overturned, or even the, decision was leaked before it was overturned officially. I've seen so many women and people in different states and things being like, if you need to go camping, okay, like we got a great camping spot, you can come here and go camping, that kind. And like it really like fills me like with such joy to see the like care that other people in other states are doing to try to help those of us who feel like, we're trapped here. So yeah,
I'm
continuing
sorry.
to support like the abortion or abortion funds. Sorry, I could not think of that word. Abortion funds, and
You're
then
doing great.
even like um, the Democratic challengers in these red states, like they don't have a lot of money and things like behind them to get the word out. So like supporting those politicians who are running against these people who are trying to impose a Christian state upon us.
Right. Right. Okay. We're gonna do our research around these funds, but would you actually email Hoff Studios some
Yes,
of your favorite links, and we'll
yes,
link it in the
definitely.
show notes.
Hmm.
We're wrapping up now. I could talk to you forever and learn from you forever. If you could do some webinars, that'd be great.
Yeah, whatever you
Just a
need, I
little
am here.
business idea for you. Yeah. I mean, maybe that's a good event for us, Laura. Maybe we should do a sweet online event with Haley.
Listen, I can talk
Rally
about lots
rally
of
the
things.
troops. Yes, you can. And there's nothing like a mother to change the world. I really do believe that. I mean, literally, these human beings would not exist without women. We are
Yes.
so powerful. We can do this. I'm sorry that we have to do this, but we can. So I'm wondering what your parting words are for us, and where we can find you to learn more and to support you, and all of the meaningful, amazing work you're doing. And also, you're really funny and cute online, so
Oh, thank
that's
you.
also, a bonus.
Well,
And
thank
such
you.
a
I
kid.
think,
Yeah.
yes, she is quite adorable. I think my parting words for all people in, our country right now who feel like they're being, pressed down and it's very scary and we're going backwards. I think it's just don't lose hope. If we lose hope, then we stop acting and that we just essentially invite them to take over. So we have to, no matter how scary and how dark it might seem, we have to just continue to hope and, take that hope and turn it into whatever action you can. Whether it be sending some money to an abortion fund, whether it be going to a march at wherever, your city is, even if even if you have abortion rights, there's still marches and things going on to support the federal, codifying of Roe. And so just like don't lose hope and keep
Mm.
pushing forward because we we've done it before. Like we have overcome before. And so we just have to keep that up. And then, we got to pay attention to what a lot of these people are doing, behind the scenes. Sometimes when things get good, we are like, everything's great. And so we stop being vigilant, I think, a lot of times. And that's when the players who are trying to take control start working behind the scenes and doing very shady things slowly. And then that's what leads up to what we have here. I mean, which I think we can see that has happened in the slow building of the Supreme Court and where it's gotten now. So I say don't lose hope. And then you can find me on TikTok or Instagram or anything. It's just Haley Grammer. It's spelt weird, but I think you can figure it out.
Spell it for us. Spell
Oh,
for us. We can do it.
Haylie. So it's like Haley, and then grammar, but with the ER at the end, not a AR. So GRAMMER.
On Instagram and TikTok.
TikTok and
And I just wanted to
everything.
and everything. So I wanted to put an asterisk on the Supreme Court thing that you just mentioned. Basically, many of the Supreme Court judges, the majority of them are conservative, which is making this a little bit harder, a lot harder for
Yeah.
us. And that happened over time.
Well, recently under our last president, some of them, 3 of them, were pushed through very aggressively, and then they also the same ones that lied under oath when they said that Roe was, law, and they weren't going to. Why would they overturn it? But then they did.
Right.
So,
And then they did in like no time at all.
yes,
Yeah.
first chance they got.
Just an interesting. It's just an interesting side note. Maybe they'll edit it out. Maybe they won't. But I loved your push for hope, because I really do believe that that is the seed for change. The Israeli national anthem is Hatikva, which means the hope. Literally,
Yes.
nothing happens without hope. Nothing
Yes.
happens without hope. It gives us strength. It gives us courage. It gives us meaning and power. And I see that so deeply rooted in you. And I'm really galvanized now, Haley. I
thank you.
am so inspired by you. I have been for a long time. Just thank you for your work. Thank you for doing it with humor and with great lashes and cute hair and like,
Thank you.
and just like using the internet for a tool for real good. I'm so grateful, and we are. We have our marching orders. We'll put the links in the show notes, and your friends and family. I know you're all vasectomied out, so you're not gonna need any beds to sleep in Brooklyn. But if you do know anyone, truly, my door is open.
Well, thank you from all of us uterus owners here in the South. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. See you on the interwebs.
Yes.
Thank you.